Alrighty, so we're checking in again to film another video. Today I'm gonna try my hand at my first try at reaction content. So I thought it would be interesting just to check out this YouTube video we got here. I'm actually not in full screen right now, so I can't necessarily show you, but it's called Xbox Lost the Console War. Now it's redefining gaming, apparently, according to the Wall Street Journal. And apparently this is called the Economics of Something, maybe the Economics of Gaming series or something like that. I don't know. I saw they had a couple other videos up here, trying to talk about business when it resorts to gaming and stuff like that. I thought it'd be interesting to react to that sort of thing, just because I feel like I'm like, for the people that don't know, I'm like a business person. I am a professional. I work in supply chain operations, yada, yada, whatever. I work in corporate. I've got a 9 to 5. And I went to a decent business school in my undergrad. And the amount of stress that the entire like business school apparatus puts on reading the Wall Street Journal is crazy when you think about how little this thing has to add. Like, if you're actually following a certain market, industry, or something like that, the Wall Street Journal, to me, from what I have read, from stuff I already knew the answer about, they are like the last person to talk about something, right? So similarly, when they're out of their depth, like, I'm not gonna lie, I pre-watched this video. I watched this video on my own YouTube, and then was like, okay, we got to talk about this. Even just the title alone, Xbox Lost the Console War. Now it's redefining gaming. Like, for who? For who? But anyway, my point is, I think it's interesting that it's popular now for people like the Wall Street Journal to jump in and have an opinion about something like this. And what ends up happening is, like, news outlets like this drive the conversation on things like CNBC and on LinkedIn, and how adults, like other professionals that don't know anything about this space, think about it, because they just don't know any better. And so people will read this and they'll be like, bro, you guys seen Xbox doing their cloud stuff? It seems like they're pretty much going to take over the market. But then you ask any gamer what cloud gaming is like, and it's like, okay, like, they've got it to the point where it kind of works. You can have like spouts of good gameplay experiences, but it's still laggy, it's still choppy. And I will say, to the credit of the person who they interviewed, who's heavily edited in this video, she does bring up, like, if you're going to play a multiplayer game, it's pointless. You're not going to be able to do this streaming, right? So I guess I just think it would be interesting for all of us fellow gamers, fellow compatriots, fellow people who are going to know a little bit about how the console war has shaken out, to watch this video and get Wall Street Journal's perspective on what Microsoft is up to.
This is the Xbox Series X, Microsoft's most powerful flagship console. For a long time, you needed an Xbox to play games like Halo or Gears of War. Then, Microsoft decided you don't. So it launched a monthly subscription service that lets users play the latest games on a bunch of other devices. But it's increasingly competitive and will take a
The way that they say this is like it already works day one out of the box, freaking crystal clear, perfect. But I know I'm being picky, so let's just keep.
lot of investment to make it work. So, will this shift?
I'm not going to talk. I mean, this slide right here is like, come on. But they're going to talk about it later, so I'm not going to talk about it right
to make it work. So, will this shift pay off? And what does it mean for the future of the console? This is the economics of Xbox.
Okay, so I guess the economics of series is like for anything. But the thing about, okay, I know like this like style of video is so popular and that's why they're making it like this. But I just want to bring everybody to the front of the class and just say, like, Wall Street Journal. I wish that you knew what the sentiment around some of these things were for the customers of the product before you go off and say, like, wow, they're doing the next latest and greatest thing. Like, everybody should get behind this. But whatever.
Today, with more than 30 game studios, Xbox is an industry mainstay.
With more than 30 game studios that they acquired because they couldn't figure out how to have their own internal studios make any games, but whatever.
But it had to really earn that position.
To be fair, like, okay, they've come out with some games, but how are they going to take, like, if we think about, like, first party titles that were hits over the past, this life cycle, it's like, obviously they've taken a lot of blows negatively, you know, but that's unfair. I feel like we've all already talked about those situations. But, like, one thing that I feel like, and I know they're going to talk about all these acquisitions positively, but, like, they literally bought Tango Gameworks. And I thought, you know, the Tokyo Ghost, you know, like hand sign game, Ghostwire Tokyo, I actually bought that on day one because I just thought it was interesting, the hand sign mechanic and all that. And yeah, the game was like slightly underwhelming because the combat just doesn't move at the right like speed that you would want to do for something that's supposed to be cool like that. You end up just feeling like you're spamming the whole game. But then they come out with Hi-Fi Rush. It's like a super hit. It's not Tango's fault if Microsoft drops that thing in Game Pass day one because that's their strategy. That's Microsoft's strategy. And it's not Tango Gameworks' fault that it's available on Steam day one because that's Microsoft's strategy. That's what they want to do. And they probably sold a bunch of games, people being able to play it on the Steam Deck and such. So, I mean, it's just like, and then that's one of the studios that they closed doors on. The one that actually made a good game. Anyway.
In the market.
The console war began in the 1970s, when video game companies started competing to create a more powerful console and win more customers. By the 90s, the biggest players were Sony, Nintendo, and Sega. And in 1997, consumer spending on consoles surpassed arcades for the first time.
Shout out to PlayStation 1. I mean, shout out all three of these consoles. I mean, this was just a time, like, we were still gaming back then.
A few years later, Microsoft entered the scene with its first-generation Xbox. To entice customers into their ecosystems, most of these companies tried to keep the prices on their consoles as low as possible, selling them at a loss. Xbox loses up to $200 per console, but the brands made up the difference by selling games and other accessories.
No offense, but what games? What are, like, I mean, what's Microsoft been up to past? I know they're working on it. I'm interested in some of the stuff coming out of Obsidian and some of the stuff coming out of some of their others, you know, but it's just like, what though? With this generation and with the last one, what exclusive games? That was like the main thing that they did wrong, was like not having any exclusive first party single player games. In my opinion. Let me just be frank with y'all. We're talking about my opinion here. But that it's just like I know that these are fluff pieces, so I'm kind of weird getting mad that there's no, but it's like, come on guys, like this is journalism, okay? Anyway.
The more consoles you sell.
This person, you can tell that they had a lot of intelligent things to say, and they probably talked about it for like 25 minutes, 30 minutes with whatever this interview was, and then they promptly, like, I'll even go back, they promptly limit this person to like 20 seconds of the video.
Made up the difference by selling games and other accessories.
The more consoles you sell, the more software you're going to sell with it.
The PlayStation
Nice.
outsold the Xbox every single time.
I mean, we're all losing now. Like, PS5 Pros really got me down on PlayStation, but I just gotta say, we're catching a dub on this graph. You know what I mean? PlayStation guys, on this one alone, it's time to dap up. But see, even the journalism with this is weak, because while at the end of the life cycle of the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, at the very end of the long tail, more people bought a PlayStation 3. Everybody who was around then knows that the place to be during that time period was the Xbox 360. I'm sorry, PlayStation 3 people. I'm sorry. Like, bro, you can't see, but I have a backwards compatible PlayStation 3, like, right there. But I had a 360 back in the day, and I needed to have a 360 because that's what everybody was playing on. You know what I mean? Like, this is just... If I want to play Call of Duty with my friends, I got to be on 360. I did have friends that were on PlayStation 3, so, you know, those people are probably like, well, what the hell? But party chat, you know what I mean? Like, Xbox really dominated that whole situation, and then they came out with Kinect. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to beat up on Kinect, but it's like, you guys know. It was like, wow, Xbox is really that platform for the gamers. This is some real Mountain Dew and Doritos timeline type shit. And then they're like, you can play Kinectables with the AI animal. But hey, they were getting the map packs early back then. So, I mean, they had everything in order. Like, I don't know what happened. I'm sure we could go and look and see some leadership change as far as like who was in power. But they just fumbled the end of the 360 and the beginning of the Xbox One so hard. But if this was like good reporting, I feel like they'd be like, okay, even though the 360 was a very popular console, the PlayStation 3 still sold more in the end. And then they fumbled the bag on the Xbox One. Like, that should be, like, you're kind of like removing their own responsibility from this thing. Like, the reason why the Xbox One failed was because it was like poo-poo doo-doo butter. You know what I mean? Compared to the PlayStation 4, just like at launch. And then even though eventually by the end of the Xbox One, the Xbox One X was the most powerful version of any of the consoles in that generation, it didn't matter. Because everybody already built up their library. Xbox people stayed in Xbox. PS4 people, if they cared enough, got a PS4 Pro. I didn't. But, like, I mean, they fumbled hard. It wasn't like people just chose PlayStation for funsies. You know, whatever. But, you guys. I mean, the way that this stays here in this graph, like, I mean, look at this. But whatever.
Microsoft only came close to beating Sony with the Xbox 360. Analysts say this was because the PlayStation 3, which ran customers up to $600, was priced too high.
This is what I mean. Yeah, they addressed the fact that they came the closest with the 360. Like, analysts say because the PS3 was priced too high. Brother, how long did we suffer for what? Like the first 2 years of the console? Like, the reason why people bought the Xbox 360 was because the games ran better, because it was easier to design for. It was cheaper. That's an aspect for sure. But, like, not... Like, once the Slims came out, everybody was price equalized. So, for the majority... For the most of the PlayStation 3s that people bought, most of the 360s that people bought, this was not a problem. This was not the reason why. In my opinion.
But the Xbox lost ground with the next generation, and ultimately, it lost the console war. In 2017, Xbox launched Game Pass, positioning itself as a services brand.
It's more interested in making content available to people on whatever device they choose to play on.
Game Pass is a tiered service. The least expensive plans offer gaming on either console or PC, and the most expensive plan has multi-device gaming and other features like streaming games from the cloud and access to certain games the day they're released. In essence, Microsoft is betting that it can get more customers if they don't have to buy a console. This model also gives the company a...
I don't know about you guys, but the service, the SaaSification of everything, like the idea that everything's becoming a subscription. I know I've already outed myself as like a physical media guy, but just like, oh my gosh, like we're not ready for it yet. Like you see I mean, Game Pass is cool and PlayStation Plus is cool. I like that we can download games and play them and all that. But I especially love the premium service where we're getting some backwards compatible now, finally. Like Sly Cooper was fun to play recently. But like, am I that, like, are y'all really into this so much? Like not actually buying stuff? Like I get it. For those of us that are trying to like really save some money, $15 a month can just be like so nice to allow you to be able to play a huge library of games. Like that value to me makes so much sense. But when we consider the long tail effect of this, the developers that are releasing day one on Game Pass are getting significantly less money than they would like. In order to equalize that issue, the company, Microsoft, is continually having to pay people, I'm guessing, more money than they would like to license this stuff for Game Pass day one. And as a result, then like, if it has to be Game Pass day one for it to be like in good graces with Microsoft, then I as a developer am not going to want to focus on the Xbox as the target demographic for my thing if I want to make some real money. If I'm making the next AAA big boy title, like if I'm releasing it on day one on Game Pass, like that's embarrassing. Because you're just like, what, you don't think people would pay for it? I guess there's an argument of like putting the game in the most people's hands. But I really think that this sort of Game Pass licensing, Game Pass day one, Game Pass only sort of thing, it just is going to do the same thing that it's done to movies and TV, where it becomes like a race to the bottom as to how cheaply you can create something and release it on a dime to then like catch cultural engagement for a small amount of time and then just like rinse and repeat for some other piece of garbage. Like we will end up in a scenario like with movies and TV where it doesn't really make sense to, I mean, we're already in this scenario where it doesn't make sense to make a game like a game that's a little bit more, I don't know, so the reason why I'm thinking about this is because in his Hot Ones interview, Matt Damon talks about how they can't really make movies like Good Will Hunting anymore because they're sort of taking a chance that the audience will be willing to go on like this emotional journey, and it's not necessarily the big box office blast that, you know, a new Avengers film or something like that would be. Okay? And now you and I that may be like, you know, people that enjoy good shit, we might be like, well, yeah, well, now that Marvel stuff is like all slop. So what's the, you know, that in and of itself proves why we should be making those movies. Well, the studio executives don't care. And at the end of the day, like as much as I love developers and I love the idea that they're making the games that I love, like the people in the top of those offices too are most concerned with how to make money. Case in point, like what's happened to Call of Duty and the skins. And like, can you imagine? People have been convinced to buy like hundreds of dollars of skins for a game that's going to refresh next year and their skins won't be relevant. But I mean, like if Activision really cared about their player base, they would not be doing stuff like that because there's no inherent value to it. But they're doing it because they're like, LOL, let's extract some money from these idiots. You know what I mean? So it's like, anyway.
A recurring revenue stream, so it doesn't have to rely as much on blockbuster successes.
So Game Pass solves the problem on the consumer side by making lots of content available for cheap, and on the business or the...
Y'all reached out to a business consultant for this?
supply side in terms of offsetting the financial volatility associated with entertainment.
Microsoft's head of gaming, Phil Spencer, has said Game Pass is profitable.
And I think it will stay in that 10 to 15% of our overall revenue.
But Microsoft isn't the only one stepping into the subscription world. In 2022, Sony merged its subscription services, PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now, and relaunched it to compete with Game Pass. There are two key things that give Microsoft an edge. First, it's a much larger company with lots and lots of money. And for the past decade, Microsoft has been using that money to acquire game studios, beefing up its library. In 2014, it bought Mojang, the maker of
I just want to say, I'm with everybody that thought that the Microsoft antitrust thing was a little bit of a petty move. But when you look at this graph and you understand the scale at which these acquisitions are happening, it's kind of like, no, they kind of should have been taken to court for antitrust.
Minecraft for $2.5 billion. In 2021, it bought ZeniMax Media, owner of Fallout and Doom, for $8.1 billion. And in 2023, it finalized the purchase of Activision Blizzard, the maker of Call of Duty and Candy Crush.
Like, when you look at it, now that we have this summarized view in front of us, it becomes so obvious that, like, a bunch of people got together in a room and they were like, we cannot make games at this company. We suck at making games internally. What should we do? Okay, what's the most popular game on PC? Minecraft. Let's get that. Okay, we bought Minecraft. Okay, what's the most popular game on PC and console after that? Well, people do love those Fallout, and people do love those Elder Scrolls, and everybody loves Bethesda, and they've always been really cool with the PC Xbox crowd. So then they're like, boom, let's pick those guys up. And then they're like, oh, you know who else makes all the games that the mainstream loves? Activision Blizzard. And since we're Microsoft and Bobby Kotick doesn't know how to run a company and sexual assault allegations, all this stuff, let's scoop in here and scoop them up while they're available. Like, they literally were like, instead of investing in our own acquisitions that we already bought and trying to get those companies to make decent games or to speed up the process of putting out some good first-party games from those companies, because, like, let's not forget, they already have other people. Like, they've been working on acquiring people for a while. These are just the big hitters. Like, if you're going to take some of our best third-party studios and sequester them onto a first-party platform, even though I know Microsoft's like, we'll give everybody our games. Like, this strategy was literally like, we don't trust ourselves to make good games, so let's buy them. And then they found out, which these people are, I can't remember if they mentioned this or not, but it's like, then it's almost like they found out, like, when you try to just brute force your way into a creative aspect of an industry, it doesn't work. Like, to some extent, the money won't make it work.
For $75.4 billion.
To put it in perspective, that is a little bit less than what Sony makes annually.
Second, as a giant tech company,
Yeah, so it must have been a great idea.
Microsoft owns lots and lots of data centers, over 300 worldwide, some of which help support Game Pass and cloud gaming.
The incumbents like Nintendo and Sony, they live and die on great content and this magnificent retail distribution infrastructure that they've built. So it's in Microsoft's interest to push into its data centers and its infrastructure.
So this guy's right, though. Okay, if you know, the aspect of this that is sobering but true is that, like, if you are Microsoft and you have Azure cloud in your portfolio, like, anybody that's trying to do cloud stuff outside of you is either going to be renting space from you or renting space from Amazon AWS. So if you already have that in play, then you're at a huge advantage. Absolutely. But the way that this is framed is like, well, you know, because PlayStation and Nintendo have it locked down at the storefront, Microsoft's got to figure out how to get it done digitally. It's like, brother, nobody has it locked down at the storefront. The only reason why Xbox doesn't sell games at Target anymore is because, like, I mean, It's because they don't even put the games out. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so if there's nobody has a monopoly on GameStop, okay? Nobody has a monopoly on Amazon game disc sales, you know? Nobody has a partnership to make, there's no distribution system that makes them better at it. Otherwise, you would see at your local game stores, like I used to work at the Exchange here for a little bit. It's like impossible for them to get new copies of games because the supply chain around this just makes it near impossible for the economies of scale to make sense for a small person. So sometimes you have these companies come in that try to do big group buys, and then they, as a coalition, will buy like a normal order for, like, say, a GameStop, and then they'll split it amongst all their locations to be able to offer a new game as like a marketing, or, you know, to get people in the door. And so, but what ends up happening is, like, yeah, for a really popular game that they know they're going to sell a bunch for, yeah, all these small stores get together and they buy a big order, and so they're able to stock like 12 games on day one, which is still a very small amount when you consider some of the games that we might be talking about here. And people want to buy local these days, so people really do come into those places looking for new games. Like, I wouldn't say that if I hadn't witnessed it myself. But like Super Mario RPG, we only got like 3 copies of it brand new on the whole first 2 weeks at our location. 2 or 3 weeks. And every time I was working, somebody came in like, "Oh, you guys have Super Mario RPG?" And, you know, first 3 guys got one, but then after that, it was like, "Oh, no, we'll get some more later." It's like people want to shop at those places, but the economies of scale for it doesn't make any sense. But my point in bringing that up is that nobody has, like, in that experience, I did not witness any one company, any one platform that did a better job of distributing their games via the retail space. Like, the same challenges exist for all of them. Maybe Nintendo does a slightly better job of selling through retail because they just are old, and so old-minded. So, you know, you can buy stuff digitally for your Switch, but most parents out there buying a Switch for their kid, they're like, "Oh, I just gotta go buy this new game," and they'll put that little cartridge in, and they don't want to put their credit card in the fucking Switch, you know? But anyway, the idea that they have to double down on digital because they don't have this retail distribution network is just like, that's like just silliness. But I know that's not necessarily his point here.
The clouds, because it can't beat Sony and Nintendo at retail.
This puts it in an arena that mainly other massive tech companies like Amazon and
I'm sure this guy's data says one thing, but, you know, certain data points, I'm just going to very high level this. Certain data points could mean many different things, right? So if we're not selling games at retail stores, it could mean that I have possibly basically strong-armed all my customers into joining this one subscription service that gives all my significant games away for free on day one. So I'm basically encouraging people to join my $15 a month service instead of hoping that they would pay $60 for a game every couple months. And again, like, even saying that out loud, I don't really know if that sounds like a good idea, you know? But I know I'm a hater. Like, about this kind of stuff, I'm a hater. Check out the bird poop on the NVIDIA headquarters in this photo, by the way.
NVIDIA and Google can really compete in, but there are lots of obstacles. To start, adoption has been slow. In 2020, it targeted 71% subscriber growth and reached 86%. But the following year, it fell short. And in 2022, it missed its target by a long shot.
I wonder to what degree Wall Street and the SEC monitors like freemium tactics in such a way, because like if Microsoft gives everybody a insanely cheap incentive price for Game Pass in 2020, and then everybody joins for a couple months free and then a couple months paid, and then in 2021 some of those people stay, some new people come in and buy it anyway. And then our numbers look way worse because some of those free people kind of dropped out. And then our target growth in 2022 is 73%. But you increase the price, and there's, I think, less games available. Like, who created that target? And how do we think we were going to get there? But secondly, when we're looking at these growth numbers, how much of this is due to, oh, I'm going to give everybody 3 months for free right before the end of the fiscal year? I know that it sounds crazy that they'd be doing stuff like that, but I promise you, like from my experience in corporate, this is what you do, you know?
Some people are just not comfortable with the idea of not actually owning a game. They may want to play a game, put it down for 6 months and pick it up later or a year later or more. And it may not be in the subscription service anymore after that time.
So as of
I'm that way. I know that there are people that like digital. I don't dislike the convenience of digital, but I just feel like I would love the opportunity to play my game. If I really like a game, I would like the opportunity to play it all the time. And so I'm not really looking to have it tied to a subscription service, you know? It's just like such an interactive experience. I want to own it. I want to know that I can share it with people. I want to know that it's not going to be taken away from me. Like that's just how I feel about it. Like, and even now, like in the recent years, I've gotten into playing retro games too. Like finally diving back into the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3 library to play stuff I hadn't played when I was younger. And like those games would just not be available for me in the same way that they are if there wasn't the ability to go to a secondhand store and buy the stuff. Like eBay exists, sure, but when everything goes all digital, like you will basically reach a point where for games that should be somewhat easy to get a hold of, it's going to be hard because we're not going to be printing as many copies, if at all. And then once those servers, even it being 20 years after that game first comes out, finally get shut down and there's no remaster, there's no backwards compatibility layer that makes it useful for them to keep the servers up or whatever. It's just like you will literally be unable to play that game unless you pirate it or you know somebody who owns a console that already has it downloaded on it. And then you're going to see like the PT situation for, I don't know, like freaking NBA 2K. Like people be like, oh, you know what? I'm really trying to play 2K20 for some reason. And then like they'll try to go back and play it and they will be impossible, you know? Like just stuff like that you don't even anticipate being an issue, but it will basically make a lot of these games disappear in the ether forever, which just makes me sad. Like I want to be able to share this stuff with the future generations, you know?
2024, Game Pass has amassed 34 million subscribers. Some of the biggest challenges are specific to cloud gaming, a feature included in Game Pass's top
You don't say.
tier. Traditionally, game data was stored locally on cartridges, discs, or downloaded straight to the console. With online multiplayer games, data like each player's actions were streamed.
It's funny to think that we are at a point where we've been downloading games to the console so long that it's like traditionally the games are downloaded to the console. But it's like, it's I'm not being picky. I'm not saying she's wrong. I'm just saying like it's just makes me feel so old sometimes. So I still remember when being able to download the whole game was just like a new thing, and buying things on the marketplace. Like the very first thing that I bought with Xbox points, other than I think I had used, like I redeemed gift cards to get map packs, because you could go buy the map pack from GameStop and get it on your receipt and just like redeem that code. Like I used to do that a lot, but the very first thing I bought with like actual Xbox points was Minecraft for Xbox 360 when that came out. And that was like a big thing. Like I was like, oh, I'm just like downloading this thing. I don't even have like a disc for it. And now we're reached the point where even if you own a disc, it's being downloaded from your disc to the console, or in some cases the disc doesn't even have the game. And then now we're reaching the point where it's like, oh yeah, it's just like traditionally games are downloaded. It's just weird for me. It makes me feel old.
But with cloud gaming, the entire game is streamed to your device, which can be laggy.
If it's a competitive game, a millisecond can mean the difference between winning and losing.
Sometimes I still wish that they couldn't do hot patches and they had to release something as I want them to be able to fix bugs in my game, but I still wish they release expansion packs as like a separate disc, because it would just make it that much better. Like, this thing is not going to go away, but I know it's kind of the logistics around that don't make a lot of sense. Like, just buy the complete edition if that's really what you're into, but still, I wish that we still, I mean, it doesn't even have to be a disc. Like, if it was like an SD card sort of thing or whatever, like the Switch does, like, fine. But I just wish that there was a more compatible way with what I wish I could use my money for to buy. But I know it doesn't make sense. I'm kind of like I'm going too far in that way. But anyway.
Cloud gaming is also expensive to operate.
The economics have changed, but they haven't immediately changed to, only run a profit. Both of those offerings, whether those are product-based and conventional or whether they are streaming and more digital, both of those run at a loss in principle, but to recuperate and to earn money in those contexts is a very different proposition.
One report found that just 6% of gamers around the world were subscribed to a cloud gaming service in 2023. Still, experts believe it will grow substantially.
Cloud gaming is one of those few components where they could possibly thrive and lead, even if that's a much more modestly sized industry.
Microsoft isn't getting rid of the Xbox anytime soon. Later this year, it will release new versions of its current generation, the Series X and S. But it's
the Galaxy Black looks kind of nice. I can't lie. Looks kind of nice.
Clear that Xbox views its content as the future of the company, not its hardware.
It is incredibly difficult for these large companies, in spite of their resources, to be agile and innovative. And so, they're always watching someone else just run the show. And so in many ways, you could make the argument that the current effort and investment towards Game Pass and xCloud and all of the things that they're building and acquiring goes towards perhaps finally being in the driver's seat for the first time.
They were in the driver's seat in the Xbox 360 generation, and they blew it. We still have tons of great games on the Xbox. I don't know. Anyway, that's the video. I don't think I'll be doing too much React content. I don't really think that's what I aim to be doing with this channel, but I watched this the other day, and I just felt like hanging out and talking about it with you guys. So that being said, what's my takeaway from this video is let me take this off. Ugh. What's my takeaway from this video is, what do I want the people to think about this? Is just that it's just funny to me how historically, legacy business publications try to, for the sake of buzz or interest or something, delve into the realm of video games or entertainment or all these spaces that traditionally business people don't really know very much about or are not that clued in on. And then they talk about it with so much this is the future, this is what's going to happen, and how that trickles down. Literally, you'll hear people on CNBC being well, Microsoft is ahead of the game with this cloud stuff. Like it's already happened, I don't know. I just think it's interesting. It's it's a fun thing to examine. And I'm sure that Nintendo video that just showed up is going to just talk about how they're not worried about pushing graphics or whatever, the base level stuff. But I don't know. I expect a little bit more from the Wall Street Journal, I feel like, and I wish that in the future they would allow their internal experts on such a thing to talk a little bit more. That lady got cut down to 30 seconds out of this 6.5 minute video. And I think that if they were really trying to talk about the truth about the landscape of what's going on with Xbox and the console war, that they would have given this lady's more nuanced take over the course of the whole video. But what these publications are really turning into, especially on their YouTube, is either a political engine, a commercial engine to like market this product and then get ad spend in return. Like, it's just, you guys are supposed to be the people that are finding out the hard-hitting journalism on this stuff. Like, let the gaming journos that don't suck at playing games handle that, and let you guys keep do the business side of things. Talk about how they've actually had issues and how they've actually been better in certain areas, and don't turn it into like a commercial. You know what I mean? This video to me felt like a little bit like a commercial, because of the fact that it's not really engaging with the history of what's happening in the console war with full knowledge, But at the end of the day, it's a Wall Street Journal video, and people like you and me don't even watch this stuff. So that being said, that was a video. Hopefully 40 minutes of content on this 6.5 minute video is good enough to beat the copyright allegations, but we will see. If you guys actually made it to this point in the video, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe down below. The only reason why I'm asking you to do so is I enjoy the engagement that's been happening recently in the comments section. So please feel free to leave me a comment. I'll probably respond. Have a great rest of your day.